Soon Zoe was plucking as many blackberries as she could off the bush, just as she had with a hamster. She began teaching Armitage some tricks. There was the walk, the jump, the hop on one leg, the wave, and the dance. Soon the bush was bare, and Armitage looked rather stuffed and tired. Zoe knew it was time to stop. She whisked him up in her arms and gave him a kiss on the nose. "You are amazing, Armitage. That's what I will call you when we perform together on stage. The amazing Armitage." Zoe skipped down the alleyway. Her heart was dancing, as was her feet. It was only when Zoe reached her estate that the spring in her step vanished. Not only would she have to tell her stepmother that she was suspended from school, but she'd have to come up with some explanation as to why. The whole episode would give her stepmother another reason to make her life a living hell. And what was a million times worse, a reason to end this little rat's life, a life that had only just begun. As Zoe approached the great leaning tower block, she noticed something peculiar. Bert's burger van was parked right outside her towering block of flats. In the many years she'd lived there since her mother died, she'd never seen the van there before. It was only ever parked outside her school. "What on earth's he doing here?" she thought. Even from a distance, the smell of fried meat was stomach-churning. However hungry Zoe was, she'd never, ever bought a burger from Bert's van. The stench alone, was enough to make her want to projectile vomit. The ketchup was decidedly iffy too. Passing the van, she noticed how disgustingly grimy it was. Even the dirt was dirty. Zoe ran her index finger along the chassis, and a splodge of sludge an inch thick came off in her hand. Well, perhaps Bert has just moved into the block of flats, she thought. She hoped not, though. He was seriously creepy. Bert was the sort of man your nightmares had nightmares about. The tiny flat was high up on the 37th floor, but the lift always stank. You had to hold your breath in there, which wasn't easy over 37 floors, so Zoe would always take the stairs. Armitage was safely lying in her blazer pocket, and she could feel the weight of his tiny body bounce against her heart with every step. Her breathing grew louder and louder as she ascended the building. The stairs were littered with all kinds of rubbish, from cigarette butts to empty bottles. The steps stank too, but not as much as the lift. And of course you weren't so closed in. As usual, by the time Zoe reached the 37th floor, she was completely breathless and panting like a dog. Zoe stood outside the front door for a moment, pausing to catch her breath before putting her key in the lock. The headmaster, Mr. Grave, would no doubt have called her parents to tell them that Zoe had been suspended. Within seconds, Zoe was sure to let loose her stepmother's fury, a fury no doubt more rabid than even the hounds of hell. Zoe silently twisted the key and reluctantly pushed the rotting door open. Even though her stepmother rarely went out, the TV was off and Zoe couldn't hear anyone in the house. So she tiptoed across the hall to her bedroom, being careful to avoid the squeakiest floorboards. She turned the handle to her room and stepped inside. strange man was standing in her bedroom facing the window. Ah! Zoe screamed, startled. The man turned round. It was Bert. I smell a rat, wheezed Bert. Except it wasn't Bert. Well, it was Bert, but he'd drawn a moustache on his face, very poorly, with a marker pen. What on earth are you doing here? Said Zoe. And why have you got a moustache drawn on your face? It's a real moustache, my dear, said Bert. He breathed heavily when he spoke. His voice matched his face. They'd both stepped out of a horror film. No, it's not. You've drawn it on. No, I haven't. Yes, you have, Bert. My name is not Bert, child. I'm Bert's twin brother. What's your name, then? Bert thought for a moment. Bert. Your mum had twins and called them both Bert? We were very poor. We couldn't afford a name each. Just get out of my room, you creep. All of a sudden, Zoe heard her stepmother pound along the corridor. Don't you dare speak to the nice pest control man like that, she screeched as she waddled into the room. He's not a pest control man. He sells burgers, protested Zoe. Bert stood between them with a smirk on his face. It was impossible to see what his eyes were doing because his wraparound sunglasses were the deepest, blackest, darkest wheel. What are you talking about, you stupid girl? He catches rats, shouted Zoe's stepmother. Don't ya? Bert nodded silently, flashing his ill-fitting teeth. The little girl grabbed her stepmother by the thick tattooed forearm and led her to the window. Look at his van, she declared. Tell me what's written on the side. Sheila looked out the grimy window to the vehicles parked below. Bert's Pest Control, she read. What? Said Zoe. She wiped some of the smudges off the window and peered out. The woman was right. It did say that. How was that even possible? It looked like the same van. Zoe looked over at Bert. His smirk had widened. As she watched, he took a dirty little brown paper bag out of his pocket and picked something out of it. Zoe could have sworn whatever he put in his mouth was moving. Could it have been a cockroach? Was this depraved man's idea of a snack? See, said Bert, I'm a rat catcher. Whatever, said Zoe. She turned to her stepmother. Even if he is, which he isn't, because he's a burger van man, why is he in my bedroom? He's here 'cause he heard at school that you brought a rat into your lessons, replied her stepmother. It's a lie, said Zoe, lying. Then why did I get a call from your headmaster today? Answer me, He told me everything, you disgusting little girl. I don't want any trouble, my dear, said Bert. Just hand the little creature over. He held out his grubby, gnarled hand. Bert had a dirty old cage on the floor by his feet that looked like it was made from a metal basket from a deep fat fryer. Only instead of using it to fry chips, he had squashed hundreds and hundreds of rats into it. At first glance, Zoe thought the rats were dead. as they weren't moving. But on closer inspection, she realised they were alive. It's just they were packed in so tight they could hardly move. Many looked like they could hardly breathe either. They were all squashed in together. It was a sickening sight, and Zoe wanted to cry at the shocking cruelty of it. Just then Zoe felt Armitage wriggling in her pocket. Perhaps he could smell fear. The little girl discreetly brought her hand up to her pocket to hide the wriggles. Her mind was racing with potential lies before she arrived at one. I'll set him free. The headmaster is right. I did bring a rat into school, but I set him free in the park. Just ask Raj. He told me to do it. You should go and look for the rat in the park, she added, suddenly cupping Armitage through her blazer pocket as the little rodent was squirming like crazy now. There was a deathly pause. Then Bert sneered. You're lying, my dear. I'm not, said Zoe, a little too quickly. I'm going to leave it there. Click straight on to the next part for the end of this chapter.